Here in France, the other story that we've been following for you has been the fact that there's suspects in the brutal stabbing death over the weekend of a Malian praying in a mosque in the southwest of the country has turned up in Italy, turning himself in to police in a town northwest of Florence. There was a rally on Sunday night against Islamophobia here in the French capital. The 21-year-old denies an anti-Islam motive. Emerald Maxwell has more.
The target of a 72-hour manhunt. Olivier, suspected of stabbing young Malian Aboubacar Cissé in a mosque in the south of France, handed himself in at a police station on Sunday night in Italy. The 20-year-old Frenchman, seen here on the left, was caught on camera last Friday stabbing Cissé dozens of times, and then filmed him on his phone while shouting anti-Islam insults. Cissé's body was only discovered when worshippers began arriving later that morning after Olivier had fled. For them, his arrest brings some relief.
He was planning on doing it again. Now that he's caught, at least we know he can't.
Olivier is suspected of getting help for his 700-kilometre journey from southern France to Pistoia, north of Florence, where he handed himself in, accompanied by a close relative and a lawyer. For the mosque's faithful, many questions remain.
He contacted people on the phone while he was here. He sent the video to someone who shared it. So we hope there aren't other crazy people with him who want to do the same thing.
Born in Lyon to a Bosnian family, Olivier was unemployed and unknown to the police. For now, he's primarily suspected of having an Islamophobic motive, but the prosecutor said they weren't ruling out others too.
He had a fascination with death and a desire to be considered a serial killer, and he expressed the desire to kill more people.
A European arrest warrant will be issued for the suspect's transfer across the border to France. The killing prompted President Emmanuel Macron to say there was no place for religious hate in French society. But the anti-terror prosecutor's office has not taken up the case, and the authorities have been accused of a double standard in their reaction.
Well, for more, let's cross to Lille in northern France. Olivier Esteves is Professor of British Studies and Political Science at the University of Lille. Thank you for speaking with us here on France 24.
Hello.
First off, this story has shaken France because we've had this spectacular stabbing, this man who's on the run and who now denies that he had an anti-Islam motive, yet at the same time, why film the murder and then post it to social media?
Well, it's very, very early to jump to any conclusion, but what is clear is that from the few colleagues like myself or other colleagues that study Islamophobia in France and elsewhere, there are obvious parallels to be made with the lethal attack that was carried out against the Christchurch mosque in New Zealand, despite the fact that the number of casualties in the New Zealand case was much larger. But yeah, there is no denying that although we like to deny the very existence of Islamophobia as a concept in France, that this attack was carried out for Islamophobic reasons.
Carried out for Islamophobic reasons. What do you make of the political reactions? We've had the government promising to step up security around mosques, and we've had the interior minister who's touts himself as a law and order man, who has come out with a denunciation of what happened.
I think part of the project that is carried out, promoted by the reactionary right, of which Bruno Retailleau belongs, is very much Islamophobic itself. So when I heard a few minutes ago the phrase double standards was used, it's very clear for the large number of Muslims in France, I'm not part of them, that indeed there are double standards. Whenever a synagogue is assaulted, and rightly so, you have ministers that go to the synagogue on the very same day as the synagogue is actually assaulted. Whenever a mosque is assaulted, and there was a very high-profile case back in 2019 in the southern town of Bayonne, no minister turns up. And this is exactly what happened over the weekend. And this is exactly what happened, what shocked a large number of French people, be they Muslim or not.
Yeah, the interior minister was 10 kilometers from the scene of the stabbing. He did not attend a rally that took place.
I think a certain number of, part of his electorate really are people that are reactionary, right-wing, more or less elderly folks that, have, let's say, a streak of Islamophobia about them. So they would, he does, he's on an electoral campaign, he's on the campaign trail. He wants to be the leader of the main right-wing party, which is not Rassemblement National. Therefore, he needs to send.
You mean Les Républicains, right? He's running for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's running for this party, for the leadership of this party, and then therefore he probably thinks that strategically it would be shooting himself in the foot if he actually did go himself and visit the mosque or just physically go to the place itself. Unlike what has been happening many times with synagogues. In any liberal democracy, you need to be you need to be against all forms of racism, be it anti-Semitism or indeed Islamophobia.
And there was a rally that took place here in the French capital on Sunday night. A lot of the anger directed towards right-wing media that they say are fueling hate.
Yeah, so there's no denying that this is so. I think another major point, and I don't think it's been raised that much, although it's super obvious, is that the Département of the Gard, the Gard region, where this horrid attack was carried out, has 6 constituencies, all of which are actually run by the Rassemblement National. So therefore, there has been for at least 10 years, and it's been escalating, very, very worryingly. There has been a sort of mainstreaming of racism in France for many years. And the major, I would say that the major form of racism in France clearly is Islamophobia.
Olivier Esteves, it's also a stabbing death, which is very brutal, and it follows a stabbing death that happened in Nantes in a middle school. In that particular case, it's a disturbed young man who took out his anger on a young girl, and the hate is not just anti-Muslim, it seems, but again, it's always tricky to talk about whether or not this is a mental health issue or whether there is this sort of ambient feeling of radicalization.
Yeah, very clearly, again, it's still is a very early stage to jump to any conclusion. It would seem that in the case of the mosque, for obvious reasons, the religious element, the element of religious hatred is there, right? To claim otherwise would be to be blind. In the case of the private school that you mentioned, the other stabbing that took place in Nantes, what surprised me in some way was that this attack was carried out in a faith private school in France, whereas the immense majority of similar attacks, similar assaults in French schools have been carried out in state schools, which again illustrates something about the structural inequality between faith private schools in France as opposed to state-owned schools.
It brings us back to just one last question, to my first question, which is again, these horrible, horrific acts being committed and sort of broadcast, because they're put out. In the case of what happened in the south of France over the weekend in that mosque, the fact that it's being put out there. In the case of the pupil, he'd written a manifesto. You mentioned Christchurch, but there is this sort of willing to broadcast it. What can be done about that?
Well, I have no idea. I think one of the only solutions is really to monitor and control, and the likes of Facebook, X, Twitter, social media in general. What is really shocking indeed is that in order to publicize their acts, these people, they just make sure that they are being seen live, perpetrating their horrid acts. until there is any control over social media that is actually imposed from above, in other words, imposed from the French state and European states by and large, this kind of thing is still likely to happen in the near future.
Olivier Esteves, so many thanks for joining us from Lille.
Thanks a lot.